First there was darkness, ruled over by eternal dragons cloaked in shielded scales. Then came fire, radiating warmth and casting light out into the dark. But warmth cannot exist without cold, and shadows stand starker when cast by the light. From this flame were born the souls of lords claimed by Gwyn, father of the gods, Nito, the first of the dead, the Chaos Witch of Izalith, and the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. Wielding flame and steel and death, the three lords slew the dragons, and Gwyn began the Age of Fire by linking the first flame. Now the fire fades, and men branded with the accursed dark sign return from the grave. The only hope is a prophecy telling of a marked one who will follow in Gwyn's footsteps and use the strength of lords to rekindle the Age of Fire. And so you, a cursed pilgrim exiled to the land of the undead, seek to fulfill this prophecy. You toll the bells both high and low, awaken Kingseeker Frampt, retrieve the Lord vessel from Anor Londo, the city of gods, and fill it with fragments of the Lord souls retrieved from their corrupted guardians, dying many, many times along the way. The curse of the dark sign keeps you from ever truly dying, but leaves you more hollow each time you return. Eventually empowered by the Lord souls, you travel to the kiln of the first flame to strike down the ashen husk of Lord Gwyn, and take his place by kindling the first flame with your very flesh. Thus the Age of Fire is prolonged and the world is saved. Or is it? Why is it so important that the flame keeps burning? What does it have to do with the dark sign and the curse of undeath? And whatever happened to the furtive pygmy? In our rush to follow the path laid out by the prophecy, we failed to discover anything about what we're actually doing. Let's try this again, but this time, let's pay attention to the whys behind what's going on. First, let's look at the fire. Before the first flame, the world is described as a vague, cloudy nothingness where everything is the same. Once the flame ignites, it introduces disparity, not only order, light, and life, but also chaos, darkness, and death. Each of the four champions of the flame took control of these aspects. Gwyn claimed order, characterized by light, the witch took chaos, Nito took death, and life, characterized by darkness, fell to the pygmy. Gwyn's power was unrivaled with the fire burning bright, giving him the fuel to build his kingdom, subjugate lesser races like the pygmy and their descendants, and establish his family as not only rulers, but living gods to be worshipped and obeyed. But Gwyn knew the truth. Fire is finite. It can only burn so long before flaming out, leaving his legacy out in the cold. His family might call themselves gods, but without the power of the first flame, it wouldn't take much to snuff them out. Gwyn was terrified of the dark and what it portended for his kingdom of light. So with twilight looming, he made certain preparations and used all his remaining power as kindling to push back the long night and keep his beacon burning as long as possible. One of the ways Gwyn's legacy survived was through his successor and uncle, Allfather Lloyd. Lloyd founded the Way of White religion and ruled over gods and humans alike as a sort of god emperor. He also started the cultural tradition of despising the undead and trained his acolytes in the best ways to beat them to re-death. The Way of White seems to be the primary religion on the outside world, and it's a strict one. Anybody who doubts the way is exiled to a road less traveled until they can get back on track. It's no wonder then that their prophecy is so widely believed. Obviously Gwyn's kids and his friends like Frampt have a vested interest in keeping the prophecy propped up so a steady stream of future kindling keeps coming to prove themselves worthy of feeding the flame. But almost everybody you talk to shares this conviction, and Lloyd's Way of White is why. The way is also why undeath is treated as a curse in the first place. Gwyn drove back the dark and everything related to it when he rose to power, including undeath, and its re-emergence as the first flame floundered frightened the king because he knew exactly where the curse came from and where it might be going. Back in the darkness, while Gwyn and the lords consolidated the power that would bring down the dragons, the furtive pygmies studied the possibilities of their peculiar soul. They discovered that a quirk of the soul caused it to burn with an ebony flame rather than the radiant light of the others, and that they could splinter it into countless shards called humanity without losing anything of its original fire. Using this dark soul, the pygmy spread power amongst all of his descendants, giving them a fragment of primordial life so insistent that it lingered after death, and even reversed some of the nastier side effects of keeping a corpse upright. That's right, the pygmies' descendants are humans, and undeath isn't a curse, it's their birthright. Lord Gwyn saw the potential in humanity growing in tandem with his paranoia as the fire faded, and so he used his authority over humans to slow the course of nature itself. He created a burning ring of flame around the dark soul, keeping the bulk of its powers from reaching humanity, and inflicting anyone who invoked the soul's power with a burning brand reflecting the dark soul's fiery cage. With all this in mind, our mission to join the scattered Lord Souls and confront Gwyn takes on an entirely different context from the story we've been told. The prophecy, the dark sign, even the curse of undeath itself was constructed by Gwyn to beat some life back into the fading embers of his empire, but we can beat him instead. Blow the final cinder out, release humanity from the unseen yoke of the oppressor who branded them, and usher in the natural age of darkness that has been so long in coming. The way of fire is to cling desperately to life, to turn anything and everything to fuel out of a desperate fear of the dark. Power often operates under the same philosophy, blindly flinging resources and lives on the pyre of its own existence to futilely postpone change. By exerting influence over everything from what we do to what we think, those in power have an unparalleled and often unnoticed ability to control. Therein lies the importance of actively engaging and investigating with information offered to us from even the highest sources. If we don't, we risk blindly marching into the fire just to warm another's hearth.